All right. So, welcome everyone. My name is Amanda Miller, and I'm the Associate Director for the National Consortium for Data Science, also known as NCDS. We are a project of the Renaissance Computing Institute, or RENC, at UNC Chapel Hill. And it is my pleasure to welcome you to the 2026 Spring NCDS Career Panel Analyzing Data Science Careers. It's our pleasure to introduce today's career panel with this in mind. And I know this is hard, but I want you to be present. Resist the call to multitask, okay? The panelist and moderator speaking with you guys this evening have never shared a stage before. So seize this opportunity to listen and engage with these experts. They are being very generous with their time and knowledge, and we are grateful for that. We do have a few housekeeping items. I'm sure a lot of you have questions tonight. We have disabled the Zoom Q&A for attendees. And all questions related to the panel should be uploaded to Easy Retro, which is our crowdsourcing Q&A platform. My colleague Leah is sharing that link right now in the Zoom chat. And we'll share instructions and the link once again during the Q&A so we all know how to use that platform. But for now, if you want to add questions and comments as they arise, you are welcome to do that. You can also upvote existing questions during the event. We will leave about 20 minutes at the end of our time together for audience Q&A. And then after Q&A, we're going to invite you to share feedback on the event. Take a moment to tell us how to improve, tell us what types of careers and fields you want to hear from for future career panels. Let us know what content interests you most. And we are also going to provide an announcement or two about upcoming programs. So, with all of this in mind, I'm going to hand over the event to Carrie Smith, our panel moderator. Carrie works at UNC Chapel Hill as an associate professor in the Department of Genetics, and she is also an associate professor in the School of Data Science and Society. This is her first time moderating. We are thrilled she's here. Carrie, we are grateful you're here tonight, and I'm going to officially pass the mic to you. Thank you.
Thank you for the warm welcome, Amanda, and good evening to everyone that's here. It's my pleasure to host this panel on this data science careers focused topic, given the importance of data in every industry, really, and then also the realities of the job market in various spaces. I'd also like to welcome our panel, which is fantastic in terms of diversity in the fields that they're in. And I'd like to kick it off by asking the panelists to introduce themselves. And for the introductions, I'll ask everyone to share your name, your title, your employer info, and kind of thinking back to a while back, maybe or maybe a longer while back, what you wanted to do for a living when you were 10-ish or so, and then, what exactly you're doing right now and if those things aligned or not. So I'll start with let's start with you, Namrata.
Sure, happy to be here. Nice to see everyone. I'm Namrata. I'm an associate at Radiant Capital. Radiant Capital is a growth equity investment firm specializing in B2B SaaS. Um, what I wanted to do 10 years when I was 10 was definitely not invest in B2B SaaS companies. I didn't know what that was. Probably something a little more fun or exciting, like be a detective or an architect. But I am an associate at Radiant Capital now, and I love it. I've just been here for about a year. Prior to that, I was consulting at Bain, which, has a wide breadth of experience, and happy to talk about, the transition between those two and what I do today a little bit more.
Thanks, Namrata. How about Peter? You go next. And your life probably was super exciting a couple weeks ago and probably continues to be really exciting, huh? So
Yeah,
would love to
we've been
hear.
having fun. It's been fun.
Yeah, you can share a
Um,
little bit about the fun as well.
My name is Peter. I work as a football research assistant for the Seattle Seahawks. I've been here 4 years. So the last 2 years of the Pete Carroll era, first 2 years of the Mike McDonald era. Obviously, we're all riding a high right now. When I was 10, I still had the illusion that I was going to play sports professionally. Wanted to get into soccer. Didn't happen. So now, obviously, I've switched sports. I work in coaching and personnel analytics. So generally to the question of how can we use data to build advantages and win games? That's my entire job. Is just trying to answer that question.
All right, thanks, Peter. Z, how about we go to you next?
Sure thing. My name is Z. I currently work at the Research Triangle Institute, or RTI International. I am a data privacy specialist. And, when I was 10, the title of data privacy specialist or the entire field of data privacy didn't really exist. So obviously, this was something that, I went into after I graduated from university. Back then, I would say I wanted to do physics research. And, in undergrad, I actually did do quite a bit of physics research. But and that kind of led me into the whole data science and data privacy space.
Thanks, Z. Lena.
Oh, hello everyone. My name is Lena. I am a senior vice president at Truist. Prior to joining Truist, I was at RTI International for a good chunk of my career. When I was 10 years old, wow, that's a long time ago, I actually wanted to be a doctor. So, back in the day, as my parents would have said, there are two mainstream fields, either you become a doctor or an engineer. So that kind of stuck in my mind. And many people who grew up in India can relate to that. Uh, but that did not happen. I did go on to do my degree in life sciences. But later on, I found computer science to be very interesting. And I did go and get a degree in information science, computer science. So currently, I feel throughout my journey, the way my passion for medical research or healthcare research and bringing the computer science together has been quite aligned. I've worked across different sectors a lot in its healthcare research, and it's really helped me understand the reliability of the data, making sure how important that data is, whether you're in healthcare or any other industry. So I'm finding a good balance here.
All right, thanks, Lena. So there are some common threads, some differences here. So it would be awesome if you could, each person could tell the audience about your academic journeys. What did you study in undergrad or grad school, and how that ties to what you're doing today? And, as you were, did you always know you wanted to study that, or how did you make the decision to pursue, not purchase, to pursue those degrees? Namrata, back to you, please.
For sure. Um, so when I first started school, I wanted to do business. I wanted to travel the world, do interesting work. I knew I wanted to be client facing. I like talking to people. So I knew those were the skills that I really wanted to do day to day. I did not want to be coding in any sense of the word. Both my parents were developers, and I wanted to stay really far away from that. But just from some experiences in school and in sports and extracurriculars, I kind of realized that I was good at the analytical side of things, and that's where I started to dip my toes into analytics a little more. So in undergrad, I studied business, but I did a concentration with an analytics focus, and then I liked it so much that I decided to do my master's right after that, the NC State program. So did a master's program, which was very technical, data science focused. And at the intersection of those two was where my first job was. So I knew I wanted to still be close to business and client facing, but I wanted to have a technical skill set to support that. And that's where I landed at Bain as part of their advanced analytics group. So it was still strategy consulting, super dependent on teamship, talking to clients, but it had a technical flavor to it. And I was really deep in the data, working on machine learning models, churn models, things like that for big clients. Um, I enjoyed my time at Bain a lot. And after about 4 years there, I kind of wanted to move a little earlier stage. So instead of working with big Fortune 500 companies, working with companies that were on their growth trajectory, didn't have as much of a data infrastructure built out and kind of help them on their journey to scale. So that's where I'm at now at Radiant Capital.
All right, thanks, Namrata. Z, how about you next? Your academic journey.
Sure. So, I mean, I'll start with undergrad. And like I mentioned before, I knew going into undergrad that I wanted to do physics. I've always been interested in it. I've loved the topic ever since I was a child. And so, I figured I would go into physics and I would do physics research and potentially become a professor. But unfortunately, it didn't quite work out that way. I did do research in undergrad, and it was a very good experience. But after doing, undergrad level research inside of like a physics lab for 2 years, I kind of didn't feel like this is not really what I wanted the rest of my life to be. So, and I would say the big change happened in third year when I spoke with a peer mentor who was also like a graduate of the University of Toronto Physics Department. And he I would say almost enlightened me as to the difficulties in the physics job market um, when you graduate from university. And it's actually like very apparent nowadays where, of all the different STEM fields, if you graduate with the physics degree and all you have is an undergrad degree, the unemployment rate of physics grads is like 9.7% based on the last statistics that I saw. And there's very good reason for that. It's because despite needing to be incredibly intelligent in order to do physics, the process of learning it in undergrad doesn't really teach you many skills that are applicable to real life situations. You're very good at math. You get to learn how to do a lot of like partial differential equations and complex mathematics and such. But once you actually go into the real world, you kind of realize most of this math doesn't actually apply in many situations. Like, sure, if you're like exceptionally intelligent, you might be able to get a quant job in Wall Street, but you have to be like truly like galaxy brained intelligent, you know? So he encouraged me to actually transfer into statistics and to use like the skills that I have in a field that was more practical. And so I took his advice and I did my graduate education in statistics. And from there, I did a master's degree. And from there, it was basically a straight path into statistics and data science. I was hired right out of university by Statistics Canada to work within their confidentiality group in their households, in the formerly known as Household Surveys Methodology Division. And from there, it was basically just a straight path right into data privacy because what they were doing in that group is what was formerly known as statistical disclosure control, but what is now known as data privacy in general.
Interesting. And
Mhm.
the pivot there and kind of recognizing and having that awareness. All right, Lena, how about you?
Oh, yeah. So, as I said, I wanted to be a doctor when I was 10 years old. So I did start there back in India. You start your medical school right after your high school. So I started there, but then as life took turn, I and my family immigrated to United States, and I joined NC State in their pre-med program. Wasn't thinking much about computer science at that moment, and said, okay, I will continue with microbiology because my mom is a microbiologist. So I continued, finished that undergrad in microbiology, but took few electives in computer science during my undergrad. I still remember database fundamentals, data structures, and operating system, and didn't think of it much that this would become a career at that point. So I wasn't sure. I went on to continue with my master's in microbiology. And then once I finished, it was job application time. So I was going from career fairs to career fairs, very similar to all of you in your position while you are here listening to people. And I applied to many of the research companies, many industries with the that were looking for microbiologists. And I also talked with few of the recruiters, and this particular recruiter from Arthur Anderson, who was actually at a career fair at NC State, um, when I said, I'm also looking for a career, is it possible that I could be in this consulting field? And he said, absolutely, we are looking for someone to work on our healthcare client. He didn't mention the name of the client, but we could use your knowledge of, whatever little computer science knowledge you have and train you and also utilize your skills in microbiology. And I think that was the perfect amalgamation. That was the first opportunity. I know back in the day, it was easier to switch. I didn't think much about it. And I was very hesitant to go in that field. How would I do it? Do I really I don't have a computer science degree to begin with. But it was an interesting journey, a lot of learning, a lot of, and that was a risk for me, I should say that. But I took it because money was there. It was a glamorous job being a consultant fresh out of school, right? So I did that. But I also put a lot of time in learning the skills once I got on the job. So that's how I was able to make it through. So yeah, and that was the first step, and I continued along doing, data integration, data management throughout, and continue to do the same.
Thanks, Lena. Peter, what's your story?
Yeah, in terms of my academic journey, knew I wanted to work in sports, so kind of was starting from the ground up there. As we've been over, I was not skilled enough to play, so I had to figure out a different way. But I also didn't grow up with any family in the industry. So especially for sports, especially for the NFL, like that sets you back. You're starting from zero. So everything I did was kind of towards the goal of how do I get into the NFL. So when I went to Queen's University of Charlotte for my undergrad, I was going there specifically because it's right next to the Panthers. So I was trying to get into like a game day role kind of thing. Did sport management while I was there, worked with the Arena League while I was there. And then when I graduated, COVID hit. So no one was hiring, especially not them. So I went up to grad school. I went up to UMass because, hey, I heard the network was great up there. So I did a dual degree MBA and a master's in sport admin. And again, I was just trying to hit like as many side jobs as possible to give me as many avenues into the NFL as possible. So working personnel jobs, working like coaching jobs, I got my MBA to, in theory, be eligible for all of the business roles if those popped up. And then kind of all through it, like I was just using data. I never didn't really set out saying, oh, I need to be in a data role. Data always just kind of came naturally in terms of, hey, let's use Excel to do these projects. Let's use R to do these different things. And so for me, like I was trying to give myself as many different interview opportunities as possible. And data is the one that hit. And honestly, I'm kind of glad it did because it's been fun.
Yeah, thanks, thanks, Peter. I can see that. So the discussion here, there's been pivots from physics, for example, opportunities that open up along the journey that kind of, made the path or the next step obvious. I'd love to hear from any panelist here. Can you identify a pivotal moment or, like a very specific moment that clarified this is the next step for your career path? Can anyone think of any? Please unmute if so.
Yeah, I can go, Carrie. So for me, I wouldn't say like there was a single pivotal moment or a light bulb moment, as you would say. But it did happen early in my career. So I did not come from a computer science degree when I started my career, but I soon realized that I enjoyed being the person who could connect technology with the business problem. So I started as a data integration consultant working on technical projects during my initial years. And what I realized, the more I understood the meaning behind the data, I could leverage this technology in a better manner because I was asked questions about the data or the reports that I produced. And I found myself drawn to understanding how this data could actually influence decisions and not just the systems, right? So later, throughout my career, as I moved into data governance and data management roles, that really set my path. So I firsthand understood, right? We all work with the data. Data quality is so important. And when you don't have the standards, it creates a real challenge for any organization. And I wanted to fix that. I wanted to be the person who can fix that, make sure that reliable data is available to our stakeholders. So that decision to focus on making reliable data available and trustworthy data that shaped rest of my career, bringing me into the data governance space and putting guardrails around the quality and the reliability of the data. So it wasn't a single moment. It wasn't a specific project that changed my trajectory or, helped me understand that this is what I wanted to do. But it was a series of events, series of experiences through my initial days that made me think that this is the path I want to take.
Mm-hmm. So building upon that, leveraging data and practices and whatnot, maybe 30 seconds for each panelist. Either a technical skill or a soft skill so a technical skill that's critical to your day-to-day job or that you've learned over time, and then a soft skill that you wish someone had, you wish you appreciated and know that, you've learned over time. Uh, Love to hear from everyone briefly on this one. Z, you want to go first?
Sure. Technical skill, uh, Python, pandas, be good at like, manipulating data frames. A
Mhm.
soft skill, understanding business requirements and then translating them to technical requirements, and then understanding the technical requirements and then translating them into like information that business people need.
Hmm.
Oh, and don't forget legal too. They're also involved. And you gotta like tell the legal people also in language they understand how all this works.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for that. Thanks for that, Z. Namrata, how about you?
See, you got it all. That was everything.
Okay. So
Um,
plus
no,
one.
if I had to add, I would say that the technical skill that you kind of need to learn is that you always need to keep learning. Like the industry changes so fast, and so you can't really just stick to one thing and be like, oh, I'm going to do this forever, because that doesn't work. Um, and then the soft skill, like communicating in a very clear and succinct way. I think, especially if you're someone like me who likes to investigate the data and dig in, it's hard to find like the two or three things that really matter. And trying to push yourself to do that is what's going to make you stand out.
Thank you. Peter or Lena, are you plus wanting anything you've heard before? Do you have anything to add?
I'll add one short thing really quickly. Technical skills, they both killed it. Absolutely agree. In terms of the soft skills, like you have to build relationships with your audience as well, especially like in football. There's so many different data points that will agree with each other, disagree with each other. Where if you come in and just say like, "Hey, here's the data," you have to give your audience a reason to believe you. You have to give your audience like a little bit of the narrative as well, and like work that in there.
Thanks, Peter.
Yeah, and just to add on to that, right? So I think everybody said that the industry is changing so quick, the technical landscape is changing so rapidly. So tools will change too. So they will change over time, but being able to ask the right questions of data and know that whether you can trust that data or not is a skill that you should really acquire. And that's what helps you kind of accelerate your career path, dig deeper into the data, as Namrata said, and present the information in a manner that helps businesses.
Thanks. So I want to build on a part of what you just said, Lena. I think Namrata also touched on this, the field growing and moving, rapidly, developing lightning pace and, going from there to AI and uses, whether it be generative AI, machine learning, just in the AI space, that rapid evolution and growth. I'd love to kind of go move next to, has this influenced or impacted your day to day? And then, like looking forward, how do you think a data scientist job will change based on this kind of rapid development and advancement? And anyone who wants to chime in here, please feel free.
I can kick us off. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely impacted the job so much. My job today is a world different from what it was 2 years ago. I think things to like think about are how technical do you want to be? Do you want to be working on really niche ML models, or do you want to be more business facing and kind of working on surfacing insights? There's kind of a trade-off there. The second thing that I think about a lot is like, as the expert in the room, if you have a technical data science degree, you understand statistics really well. How do you kind of help the rest of the organization think about data science and using all these tools that are now at people's fingertips, like Lovable and Cursor and Claude? Like everyone wants to go vibe code and do their own analysis, which is great. Like everyone should be empowered to. But as the technical expert, how do you help them set the right guardrails so that way they, one, understand the data correctly, and two, are putting in the right checks and interpretations to make sure that we're not misrepresenting anything. So you have to enable them with the right coaching, and that trade-off is really hard and something that I struggle with myself a lot recently. But it's definitely like a necessary skill set if you want to be a successful data scientist in the future.
And that's a great point, Namrata. 100% agree with what you just said. And when I think about my career many years ago, right, my role has evolved significantly. I used to be the one who would build this data warehouses, data lakes in a very traditional system. And yeah, security and use of data was important then too. But now it's with the generative AI and all the models being deployed, it's even more important to make sure that your data is used responsibly, it's secure, and that it really supports the business decisions, right? So training these models in a way, I think about this as training a child. You have to make sure that you raise the child right with the right fundamentals. So, as these tools mature, the role, the way I see that the role of data professional is really about asking the right questions. That's where I keep going back to. It's like, are you validating your results? Are you ensuring that the data behind them is high quality and ethical? So with that in my role, governance, transparency, and trust has become more important than what it needed to be before, I guess. So data governance and AI governance is extremely important in current industry.
So digging a little deeper on that aspect. And then, just all the tools that are available and the pace at which the field is moving, etc. Z, given the nature of your work, I'd love to get I'm thinking about the consequences of data use, these applications of AI, etc. Do you spend time thinking about the ethical dimensions associated with your role, or what does that look like for you?
Quite literally every day. That is my entire job at this point.
Every day, all day.
Yeah. So, I currently work on a lot of very sensitive data, health data gathered from large population studies funded by the National Institutes of Health. And we think about how this data is going to be used all the time. The biggest part of my role is actually trying to ensure safe data use from a privacy perspective. Making sure that people's identities are protected before this data gets shared with third parties, before this data gets used for secondary purposes. Also, I have to think a lot about AI models. As we are currently working on AI models to ingest large amounts of personal health information, what's the ways of protecting it? How can we make sure that the models themselves don't wind up learning private information that we don't want to share? How what are the implications and risks that come with training AI models on people's personal health data? Because, if said model gets leaked, if said model gets poison data, if said model gets taken and used by nefarious parties, we are putting the lives of potentially tens of thousands, hundred thousands, millions of people at risk. So, thinking about like the kind of protections, the controls that go around these models, the environments that they sit in, who gets access to what data, who gets access to what models, is imperative to making sure that, I mean, just within my small field, making sure that the personal health of Americans gets protected.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, that's a significant challenge there when you think about, people's privacy, etc., and as it relates to health information and whatnot. Peter, your job is in a different space, but sticking with this kind of challenging theme, are there any challenges in your day-to-day that you didn't anticipate when you were starting out, or that you've overcome or developed ways to deal with?
I mean, kind of to Namrata's point from earlier, like I spend so much more of my day worrying about data presentation than really like most everything else. Um, so much of what we do is presenting to non-technical audiences, and being able to give information to the decision makers so that they can make the most informed decision. If we give them data and it doesn't speak to them personally and they don't understand it, the data is entirely useless. It doesn't matter at all. And so much of what we do is trying to learn who are we actually presenting to. So, for example, like Coach Carroll, he used data. He was very good with it, but he wanted his data in a very specific format. He wanted a table, and then right at the top, give him 2 bullet points of here's exactly what he should take away from this. And if you gave him data in any other way, he wouldn't get it. But if you gave him data that way, he's perfect. But then we also have 30, 40, 50 other coaches, other scouts who are also ingesting data. They're all getting their data their own separate way. And so how can we build these tools to present data in a way that speaks to them personally? How can we build reports that speaks to them personally? And we spend so much more time thinking about the actual presentation, which I mean, I love cool graphs and all that, but you have to figure out exactly how it works for specific people. And a lot of times it's not complicated. It's not cool color schemes. It's very, very simple.
Yeah, so simplicity in terms of just communicating, and depending on the how broad and diverse your audience is, critical points there. Thanks, Peter. So, oh, Lena, did you have something?
Yeah, so one thing that I just wanted to chime in for, right? We're talking about the data, the technology, and how the guardrails are. But what I have found is a big part of my job is really working with people, aligning them on this culture shift of data governance, right? So in my job, I work with putting together this data governance strategy, and it's something new. There's a lot of resistance. So most of my day, I spend time in aligning with different stakeholders. So it's more about the people, it's more about the art of convincing the people in your organization, balancing priorities and helping them adapt the new ways of working with data and providing those guardrails in form of governance around that data. So I think that's something that's very important, the human side of the work, along with the technology and the data.
Hmm. So, Lena, if so it sounds like you've learned this over, with your as you gained experience, etc. For early career professionals,
Mhm.
kind of getting into the space, what should they be thinking about? Starting from all the way at the beginning when they're preparing their application to come to your industry, and then I'd love for everyone else to chime in as well. But taking the lessons that you've learned over time,
Mhm.
how would you advise that early career professionals or students, trainees start to prepare? What should they be thinking about?
Yeah, so if I'm thinking about, I have both my kids who are about to enter the college, and this is the conversation we have, like what you should be looking at the end of your, bachelor's, master's, and going into. Uh, I would say do what you're passionate about, right? Take those courses, because if you are not passionate about doing something, it's going to be just a degree that sits on your wall, and you don't want to work in that industry. But if you're passionate about something, you'll put your heart and soul into it. Second thing, get some real world exposure. So whether that comes through your internships, your research projects, And don't be afraid to get out of your comfort zone. It's when you get out of this comfort zone, that's when the biggest learning growth happens. So I would advise that, like, as if I was my younger self, some 20, 30 years ago, that's what I would go and do. And then find mentors, right? Not just one mentor, but multiple mentors, because you get to learn different things from different mentors. You could have a mentor who can help you with your technical journey, a mentor who helps you with your sort of communication, influential skills. Those are equally important to build, and know what you want, know what your strengths are, know what your interests are, how they work the best. I have benefited from having some career coaching even later in my stage, who helped me navigate what are my strengths and how I can use those strengths to the best of my advantage in my career journey. So I find that along with your technical skills, everybody talks about, okay, learn Python, learn R, learn new languages. Equally important, can you really use that skill to market yourself? And that's where your some communication and soft skills come into play.
Mhm. All right, great advice there. Thanks, Lena. Peter, kind of tying that, what to be thinking about the strategy developments in terms of landing a position. For your space, what does a competitive application look like? What makes a candidate stand out, be competitive in that application process?
I mean, that's kind of the difficult part about sports is that so few of the applications even ever make it out publicly. It's really tough to just go like scroll on LinkedIn and find applications because so many of these jobs are filled through networks. So a lot of the times it's not about what your application is, it's about who your network is, who is willing to stand up on the table and say, hey, I worked with this person, they're amazing. You need to hire them. And so a lot of times that becomes your application. So it's less about, hey, let me build the best resume, let me build the best cover letter. It's about, hey, who can I get my face in front of? Who can I work with at a really low level and just impress them and kill it every single day? Especially like being in the NFL, we have scouts who go to every single school all year, multiple times. If you're working at the UNC football team and you're doing a great job, like we're going to end up hearing about it. And when we go around looking for people, like our scouts are going to say, hey, do you guys have anyone? And so you just have to really like go ahead and kill it every single day, um, more so than like killing the resume, unfortunately.
Yeah, the importance of a strong network. Thanks for putting that out there, Peter. Namrata, just to, if someone in the audience is sitting on an application here, to data science, something, graduate school decision, like pivot, to switch careers or whatnot, what's one thing you would tell them?
I mean, even if you have a thought, I would say go for it. Like you should definitely take the shot. I
Mm,
think that the barrier to trying things is so low now that you
mhm,
should just go and try. Like if you don't try, you never know. And I know that sounds really cliche, but the more you try, the more chances you have of something working out. And so I think if you're curious about something, like you should just give it your all and try it. There's no reason not to, really.
Yeah, so there's kind of a theme here, be inquisitive and be brave, um, and kind of identify what you're passionate about and pursuing that. Z, let's check the time here. We'll just wrap this part of the panel up with you. Any last nuggets of advice, whether it be, preparing that application or a tidbit on making that decision?
Sure. Certifications do matter, particularly in like, my field of data privacy. So if you are interested in trying to break into this field, there's a couple of certifications that would really make your application stand out. So there's the CIPP, the Certified Information Privacy Professional, offered by the IAPP. They also offer the CIPM, which is for privacy management, the CIPT, which is for privacy technologist, as well as the brand new one, which is the AIGP, the AI governance professional. If you do want to go into the data privacy field, I would highly recommend getting one of those certifications so that you can demonstrate that you have at least the baseline of knowledge necessary to work in data privacy.
That's fantastic. I love how there's a theme here, but they're very different. They're still also very unique aspects of your answers, which I think is will be beneficial to the folks who have joined the on the call today. So thank you for kind of walking us through your experiences here. We do have some questions from the audience, so we'd love to get to those as well. So we'll switch formats a little to be able to field and tackle some of the questions from the audience here. Just give us a minute while we prepare. Well, I prepare, we prepare, everyone prepares. I just need to change my organization. Awesome. Thank you, those behind the scenes making this magic happen here. So many questions. Let's start and including for individual panelists and some general questions. We'll try to tackle as many as we can here. So, uh, panelists, I'll try to keep on time just so that we can get through. Again, I'll try to give some indicators on time so that we can get through as many of these as we can. Let's start with some general here. What would you say the best way to apply to jobs in this current market and why? Peter, you had already touched on this, the strong network, but does anyone else have very specific tips on being competitive given the current market state?
I think it depends on where you're coming from. Like if you're an undergrad, there's kind of two or three ways I would think about it. The first is target structured programs. Like a lot of companies like Bain, for example, Bain, Deloitte, KPMG, like all the big consulting firms, they all have very structured cohorts that they take every year. So like you're going to find those big institutions. That's your first bucket of category, right? The second bucket is more local or like smaller companies that have one-off data science related roles. And those are listed on LinkedIn or on their jobs page on those companies. And then the third is going to be your network, which is like the unlisted things that you find by who you know and previous work experience. So those are kind of the three categories, and that's how I would structure your approach.
Mm-hmm. All right, thanks, Namrata. In terms of industries, so data is everywhere, right? But if you had to pick an industry that has a huge need for data scientists at the moment, would anyone like to chime in here?
I'll jump in. Healthcare.
Healthcare.
Healthcare. Oh my goodness. The amount of healthcare data that is currently out there in the US that needs to be managed, needs to be like put together, needs to be analyzed is huge. And it's probably like it's only going to be growing as people get older and the healthcare industry grows more and more in this country.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, healthcare. Uh, let's talk about, we talked about some approaches or things to think about when entering the job market or looking for a job. What are some common mistakes or things to avoid when applying for jobs?
So I can take that. So one thing is when you're applying for a job, right, especially your resume, make sure you invest in your resume and your professional brand.
Mm.
So what I mean by that is ensuring that your resume is, and now the systems that are using like ATS is out there, make sure you use the right keywords from the job. Show your, even when you think that you don't have a whole lot of experience, but whatever you can demonstrate from your projects, from your research, star format is still applicable. Show the impact, quantify it, right? Show what this means in terms of, your work. And I would say research the organization that you're applying for. Know what they're looking for. The more you know about it, the more you can tailor your resume to it. So gone are the days where you could have one blanket resume that you could send it to. I mean, in certain cases, it may work, but people are looking for specificity in the job. They're searching based on keywords, and especially for HR, they don't know your background, nor do they know the real job. So they're going to use the keywords to scan your resume. So make sure you're paying attention to that.
Mm. All right, thanks, Lena. Building on, you touched on kind of projects and, gaining experience and kind of building your portfolio.
Mhm.
Pete, Lena and then Peter are also, in kind of divergent career spaces, right? Can you think of any projects that you would suggest this question here that helps understanding concepts that then would also be useful in industry to build on what you just described, Lena or Peter? Any specific thoughts there?
Yeah, I can jump in on that. Like for us, really like any projects that you're doing to build a portfolio, which one is amazing, should definitely do that. Put it out online because that'll help you network, but you can also get feedback back. But generally, like, do stuff that you're interested in. Do stuff that you want to do. Don't spend time doing projects that you don't really care about. Because if you spend all your time doing that, then you may end up in a job doing that and you're not going to enjoy it. But two, think about the decisions that teams are making. If you're looking to get into the team side, or think about the decisions that you want to be making. Um, and focus on projects that answer those questions, answer those kind of questions. So if you want to get into football, like think about the decisions that teams and coaches have to make. There's a lot of people out there who put these really cool research projects together that don't give you any actionable information. Think about, hey, I can make this decision based off of this. I can tell you this corner should play this way based off of this information. And just have fun with it.
Thanks, Peter. Z, I'm trying to target questions since there are so many, the ones that we did not necessarily hear about or to build up on as next steps. Z, you had touched on certifications. Do you have any specific, and I mean, like, this is also going to be field specific, but general recommendation for courses or certifications? This question was for Lena, but Z, you had kind of touched on this, so I'd love to hear you start this off, Z, and then Lena, if you could just chime in with any differences or similarities with Z's response. So Z,
Yeah,
please.
sure. So again, like the ones I mentioned for data privacy, the CIPP, CIPM, CIPT, the AIGP, those are all great for breaking into the data privacy or AI governance fields. Lena, I might be taking your thunder a little bit here, but I would also recommend DAMA International's CDMP, the Certified Data Management Professional certifications, which will prepare you for more broadly data management kind of roles.
Lena, anything to add? Is that
And no, that's fine. I mean, Z and I have worked on the CDMP certification through DAMA, so which is a good baseline to get into data management. Similar to that, if you are, a more industry-wide, apparel certification is DCAM. So you can also consider that depending on the industry that you want to target. But CDMP is definitely widely known and valuable to the early career.
thanks to you both. I do want to kind of a more day-to-day look into your roles. So there's this question in the general column about a typical workday. What does that look like for you to, especially for trainees in the audience? What does that look like for you? And Namrata, you're um on mute, so love to hear.
Sure, yeah. I think so. Just collecting my thoughts on other people's responses, I think I probably have the least technical job here. So my day is probably pretty different from the rest of the folks. I do a lot of business facing work where it's really how can we use analytics to help make a very strategic business decision. So right now, my role is basically helping advise the portfolio companies, so the companies that we've invested in, on how they can grow and hopefully grow while making a lot of money. And so we help them think about things like what's the best marketing channels to invest in. So there's a little bit of ROI modeling there, things about what's the best customer acquisition strategy, and how do we help our customers onboard so that way they use our platform more and don't churn. So there's a little bit of churn and retention modeling there, but it's all very like directional, I would say. So I look at the data, I might do it like some sort of modeling on it, but it's really to tease out the variables that matter the most. And then the bulk of my time is not really spent on making those models as perfect as possible. I actually spend the bulk of my time on turning those insights into a strategic recommendation and then working with the sales team or the post-sales team to help think about like what are the right guidelines they should implement and the right business practices they should have so that way we see the results that we'd want to see. So it's probably like 40% technical and 60% non-technical. I'm doing a lot of work, either building slides, emailing people in meetings, workshopping ideas, but more focused on like, okay, now that I have this information, how do I actually go execute on it and use that to make business strategy decisions?
Hmm. Thanks for that. Now I'm curious if there are any other panelists that have a very, technical heavy a day-to-day that would compare contrast to Namrata's response just now.
Oh. Um, so I'll just talk about what I did on Monday of this week. Basically, over the weekend, a couple of data sets came in. These are all unstructured medical imaging data sets that I had to do reviews for and to actually do some de-identification, which basically means I needed to strip all the identifying information from the metadata inside of the images as well as from the actual pixels themselves. I had built a couple of tools over the past few months to do this. But of course, given the size and the scale of these data sets, it was going to take quite a while for me to run through. So really, what happened was I started up started up my cloud computing instances and started just piping the data through the software that I wrote in order to try to remove all this stuff. Of course, I have to keep an eye on it. This isn't something where I could just leave because unfortunately, while my software typically doesn't break because of issues in the data itself, it broke and then it broke again and then it broke again. And then so every little while, I had to go in there, restart it, fix some issues within the code itself, fix some issues within the data itself, and just keep on like chugging through. That was Monday. It's Thursday now, and the code's still running. And I am hoping, fingers crossed, that I can just kind of leave it over this coming weekend and that nothing else will break. Otherwise, I'm going to have to go in there in the weekend and like, tinker with my data pipelines and the data itself to make it all go through.
Yeah, the joys of cleaning and debugging. So our last few minutes here, I'd ask each of our panelists to pick a question from their column here that you feel like we haven't touched on, or this is something that you'd really like to get to before we have to drop. So if each person could pick a question from their column and unmute to give their response, we could use that to wrap up our last few minutes here.
So I can kick us off, and I see two questions with a similar theme there. So one is like, what tips do you have about coming up with the right questions for data? And the right below that is how should one learn to ask the right questions to ask of the data? And how would you suggest and what example do you have? So I would say anytime I am working with the data, right, I want to know why am I doing this? So knowing the why, right? Where does it help? Why is it needed? What's the business decision that's going to get impacted by data? So that's just a broader one. Then I get into a very specific of that data. So for example, in this finance, like um, how do these numbers, or for example, right, the portfolio numbers, how does it help with the growth of that particular region? So maybe I want to get into specifics. Then I want to break it down a little more and see if I can translate that, whatever my technical brain is thinking, to go and talk with my business partner. So that's how the chain of, thought starts from like a larger one. I'd like to start at the top, then try to drill down into narrower and narrower. And so when I ask the question, I have a very specific question to ask to my business partner. And then I'll go, let's see what business impact does it have? And let's see how we can make it better. And then ultimately, what I want to do is to be able to tell my story through my data. This is what I do day to day. I tell the data stories and present it to the leadership, present it sideways, present it to my staff. So I would say learning to know the data and going back to, again, what I said in the beginning, understand the meaning behind the data.
All right, thanks, Lena. Nimrata, you're
Yeah, I can go next. I can talk about how to make your resume a little more appealing. So the first part of that second question, I think like first of all, like Lena mentioned, tailor it to the job that you're applying for. And then the second piece is focus on impact. And like I think this is really, really relevant now because anyone can make a fancy sounding resume using AI. And so the most important part, oh, the lights just went off. The most important part is what you did, like what was the actual impact of it? And that should be front and center of every single bullet point. So like not I analyzed a data set of 5,000 data points, but my analysis led to this critical change, whether that's dollars saved or new customers acquired or 5 more wins for the football team, whatever it is. Like think about what's the impact and put that on your resume, and that matters a lot more than like how you did it.
all right. Thank you, Peter. How about from football wins to to
We'll take 5 more wins. That'd be awesome. I went through and answered some of these in the comments. So if you guys threw some questions in there, make sure to check that out. But I can go through this first one here. How can I get employers to give me an opportunity despite lacking the required experience? Um, Honestly, like it's kind of a sucky answer, but like get the required experience. Don't necessarily expect that you're going to get your dream job right away. Like so many people in football start out like as equipment guys. They start out with arena league teams. That was me. They start out working like on the video team. Start out in those jobs, especially at colleges, especially at lower programs. You can start out doing that, and there's so few employees that you can branch out and do other things as well. So while you're doing your job as the equipment manager, be like, hey, I've been working here for 3 months. I've done great at this. Like, will you stand on the table for me to go work as an analyst? Or hey, I've put together these projects. Like, I think they're really good. Like, who do you think I can talk to about this? You can't necessarily do that like day one, but once you get those people on your side because of how well you're killing your job, those are the people who have the connections to move up to the job that you want. And so really like it's kind of like humbling yourself and trying to start from the ground up.
And exposure and then building your network as well.
Yeah,
Yeah, which you touched on
exactly.
before.
Mhm.
All right. Thanks, Peter. And then Z, we'll wrap up with you here for
Sure. I didn't
questions.
realize that my list of questions was so long. Okay, I'm gonna try and hit a couple in one go. So, physics, if you want to transition from physics into data science, it's actually easier than you think. If you are, I mean, it kind of depends on what kind of physics you're doing. If you're doing like experimental physics, then you should already have the baseline of being able to gather data, being able to fit models to your data, being able to do some reasonably advanced mathematics. So, that kind of stuff translates very well straight into data science, because when you're doing data science, you're going to be looking at data, fitting models to data, and using some reasonably advanced mathematics. If you're in theoretical physics, I would suggest trying to become a quant. Go to Wall Street and use those advanced mathematics skills to start like going into financial modeling because that actually translates very well. If you look at people in quantitative finance, like most of them have physics degrees or like advanced mathematics degrees. Um, as for like how my position, research experience and that kind of stuff, Um, the main thing that I think that really came out of like, doing physics research and how it transitioned into uh my current career is I would say like a sense of stubbornness. Because when you're when my research in undergrad was very much experimental, and in most cases, your experiments will not work. Your equipment will break, the moon will not be aligned, the tides are going to affect the experimental results, whatever. So you just have to keep on trying, trying, and trying again. And it's the same thing in data science. You will not have clean data when you're working with real world data. You will always experience problems. The data, your systems will break, cloud computing thing, like the cloud will crash, but you have to just be stubborn and keep on pushing at it. And if you do, you'll eventually break through. That being said, do take breaks, don't drive yourself insane, like I've nearly done several times in the past. So, just uh, but having that like never give up spirit is really important to success in really any field. Not just in like, data science or physics or, anything like scientific for that matter.
Thanks, Z. So we'll end on that note of fortitude, resilience, and I just want to thank the panelists here for sharing just this rich information based on your experiences, and hand back over to Amanda. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks so much, folks. I don't know if you can see this. There's a huge standing ovation for all of you right now. Hopefully, that's very apparent. Y'all have done an amazing job tonight. Thank you. And for those who had to drop off, this event will be available on YouTube. So many people will be able to enjoy all of the words of wisdom that you've shared tonight. Thank you again. Very, very appreciative for your honesty and just really clear words of wisdom. So next up, I want to draw everyone's attention to another very cool panel that's taking place in about a month. We have several really global leaders in AI from the Data Driven Enviro Lab here at UNC, the North Carolina Museum of Natural Sciences, and Dan Morris, who is doing amazing things to push boundaries at Google AI for nature and society, speaking on a panel on how AI reveals hidden stories in nature. That is going to be a really game-changing conversation that I encourage all of you to join us for. And sign up for our newsletter because we try to bring cool programming to you throughout the year. And these two panels tonight and this one are just a couple of examples of some exciting conversations we try to bring to you via YouTube and other spaces. So check that out. When you hang up tonight, please take a second and complete our surveys so we know how to improve this event for future audiences. We would love to have you back, and we would love to have different careers represented on the panel, but we want to know who you want to hear from, the types of folks you want to hear from. So take a minute to do that at the end of our panel tonight. Thank you, everyone, once again for being here. Really appreciate all of you. Great questions were asked. And panelists, you guys rocked. Thank you so much. And Karen.